Malik Carter built an empire and trusted the only people he thought would never betray him. When his own siblings tried to erase him and take everything, they believed the ocean would keep their secret forever. But Malik didn't die. He disappeared, rebuilt, and came back smarter, quieter, and far more dangerous. Now he's back, and this time, he's not just taking everything back, he's exposing everything. Hello fam, welcome to True Love Stories, where we share interesting and intriguing stories. Please do well to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Do not forget to like and share with your loved ones. Now let's dive into the story. The first thing people noticed about Malik Carter wasn't his wealth. It was his calm. In rooms filled with sharp suits, louder egos, and people who measured worth in decimals and dominance, Malik carried himself like a man who had already proven everything he needed to prove. He didn't rush his words, didn't raise his voice, didn't chase attention. And yet, attention followed him anyway. Mr. Carter, the Singapore deal. Are we moving forward with the revised terms? Malik leaned back slightly at the head of the glass conference table, fingers steepled, eyes scanning the faces around him. Executives, advisors, lawyers, all waiting. Not yet, he said, voice even. If they want exclusivity, they need to match the long-term infrastructure investment. We're not building their future at a discount. A few nods, a few quick notes scribbled. Decision made. Just like that. This was his world: precision, strategy, control. Carter Tech didn't just move goods. It predicted movement, optimized entire supply chains using AI models Malik himself had helped design. Ports, rail systems, shipping routes, his software touched all of it. And every success story came back to one thing. Malik Carter built it from nothing. Well, not nothing. He built it from responsibility. Years ago, when their mother got sick, Malik was barely out of college. No investors. No safety net. Just an idea and a promise he had no choice but to keep. Take care of them, she had whispered from that hospital bed, her voice thin but firm. You're the strong one. He remembered gripping her hand, trying not to let her see the fear in his eyes. I got them, he said. And he meant it. He always meant it. Now, years later, taking care of them looked like a gated estate in Buckhead, where each of his siblings had their own wing when they visited. It looked like quiet wire transfers that covered mistakes no one talked about. It looked like opportunities, handed out not as charity but as belief. Malik didn't see himself as their provider. He saw himself as their foundation. That evening, the house was alive. Soft jazz floated through hidden speakers. The long dining table gleamed under warm lighting, set with precision, crystal glasses, polished silver, plates arranged like a magazine spread. The staff moved quietly, seamlessly. Family dinner night. Malik loosened his tie as he stepped into the dining room, catching the tail end of Andre's laugh. Man, I'm telling you, the track is gonna blow. I just need the right push. Andre sat sprawled in his chair, designer jacket draped over the back, confidence pouring out of him like cologne. Across from him, Renee scrolled through her phone, only half listening. Darius stood near the bar, pouring himself a drink. Malik smiled faintly. I see I missed the business pitch. Andre grinned. You always do, big bro. You too busy making real money. There was humor in it, but something else too. Something thin and sharp beneath the surface. Malik chose not to touch it. Sit down, Renee said, finally looking up. Food's getting cold. He took his seat at the head of the table, not out of ego, but because that's where everyone expected him to be. The conversation flowed easily at first. Updates. Jokes. Small arguments about nothing important. Darius raised his glass. To Carter Tech. Just saw the numbers this morning. You're killing it, man. Malik nodded. We're doing well. We. He always said we. Darius smirked slightly, taking a sip. Yeah, you're doing well. A small difference. But it lingered. Dinner moved on. Renee began talking about her latest campaign, a rebranding project for a mid-sized fashion label. Malik listened, asked questions, offered insight where it mattered. He had connected her with the client in the first place, but he never mentioned that. You should think about expanding your team, he said. You're hitting a ceiling with bandwidth. Renee's smile tightened just a little. I'm managing. I know you are. I'm just saying, scaling early gives you more control long term. She nodded slowly but didn't respond. Across the table, Andre chuckled. Man, everything sounds like a lecture with you. Malik glanced at him. Advice ain't a lecture unless you already decided not to listen. Andre raised his hands. Hey, I'm just saying. But he leaned back, eyes drifting away. It happened in moments like these, small, almost invisible shifts. A joke that didn't quite land right. A compliment that felt edged. A silence that stretched a second too long. Malik noticed it. He just didn't interpret it correctly. To him, it was normal. Family friction. Different personalities. Stress. He didn't see what it was becoming. After dinner, they moved into the living room. The city lights stretched beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Atlanta glowing in the distance like a promise that never slept. Malik stood near the glass, hands in his pockets, looking out. Darius joined him. You ever think about slowing down? Darius asked. Malik didn't turn. Not really. For real? You got more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. Malik shrugged slightly. It's not about spending. Then what is it about? A pause. Building something that... Darius let out a quiet laugh. Man, you always got an answer like that. Malik finally glanced at him. You asked. Yeah, but still. Darius swirled the drink in his glass. You ever think maybe the rest of us don't want to chase like that? Malik studied him for a moment. You don't have to chase anything, he said. You just have to decide what you want, and actually commit to it. Darius met his eyes, something unreadable flickering there. Yeah, he said. Maybe. Across the room, Renee and Andre sat close together, their voices low. He doesn't even hear himself, Andre muttered. Renee's gaze stayed fixed on Malik. He doesn't have to. Andre scoffed. Man lives in a different world. Renee didn't respond right away. Her expression wasn't anger. It was calculation. Later that night, after everyone had left or retreated to their rooms, Malik stood alone in the quiet house. The staff had gone. The music was off. Just silence. He walked slowly through the space, past photos on the walls, family moments frozen in time. Smiles that felt simpler now. He stopped at one picture in particular. All four of them. Younger. Closer. His mother at the center. Malik reached out, adjusting the frame slightly, though it didn't need adjusting. I got them, he murmured softly. The promise still sat heavy on his shoulders. But for the first time, something about it felt off. Not broken. Not yet. Just shifting. And Malik Carter, the man who could predict global logistics patterns with frightening accuracy, failed to see the storm forming inside his own home. The shift didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a single moment, a single argument, or some explosive fallout that cracked the Carter family apart. It was quieter than that. Slower. Like something rotting beneath polished wood, hidden, patient, spreading where no one bothered to look. And what made it dangerous was that it felt justified. It started for Darius in the showroom. Bright lights reflected off polished metal, Bentleys, Lamborghinis, custom G-Wagons lined up like trophies. The air smelled like leather and money, the kind of place where success was supposed to feel earned. But lately it didn't. Mr. Carter, we've got a problem with the financing approvals, his manager said, tablet in hand. 2 deals just fell through. Bank flagged them. Darius exhaled sharply, rubbing his jaw. Fix it. We're trying, but... But what? The manager hesitated. They're tightening things. Across the board. It's not just us. Darius already knew what that meant. Less liquidity. Less flexibility. Less room for mistakes. And unlike Malik's world, where one decision could shift millions without visible strain, Darius' business felt every ripple. All right, he muttered. Just keep me updated. The manager nodded and walked off. Darius stood there alone, staring at a car worth more than most people's homes. And all he could think about was how fragile it felt. Because deep down, he knew something he hated admitting. This wasn't his empire. Not really. That night, he didn't go home. He went to Renee's. Her condo was the opposite of Malik's mansion, sleek, minimalist, controlled. Everything had intention. Nothing felt excessive. Renee sat at her kitchen island, laptop open, glasses perched low as she scrolled through campaign analytics. "You look stressed," she said without looking up. Darius poured himself a drink. "You ever feel like this ain't really ours?" That made her pause. She closed the laptop slowly. "Define this," she said. He gestured vaguely. "All of it. The businesses. The lifestyle. The access." Renee leaned back in her chair, studying him now. "You just realizing that?" Darius frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said calmly, "everything we have traces back to Malik. Every contract I land, Carter Tech connection. Your dealership financing? His name carries weight. Andre's whatever he's doing." She waved a hand dismissively. "Same story." Darius took a slow sip of his drink. "I built my business," he said, quieter now. Renee tilted her head. "Did you? Or did you build something on top of what he already secured for you?" The words landed harder than she raised them. Darius didn't respond, because part of him knew she wasn't wrong. Andre arrived late. He always did. Loud entrance, expensive sneakers, energy that filled the room like he needed to prove something the moment he stepped in. "What's good?" he said, dapping Darius up before dropping into a chair. "Y'all look like a damn intervention." "We're talking," Renee said. "About?" Darius glanced at her, then back at Andre. "Malik." Andre smirked. "What about him?" "What about everything?" Darius replied. "You don't ever think about it?" Andre leaned back, stretching his arms behind his head. "Think about what?" "That our big brother hit the jackpot, and we get to live good because of it." Renee's eyes sharpened. "That's one way to frame it." Andre shrugged. "It's the true way." But even as he said it, something in his tone shifted. Less conviction, more defense. Renee noticed. She always noticed. "You really okay with that?" she asked. "Being dependent?" Andre's jaw tightened slightly. "I'm not dependent." "No," she pressed. "Then pull your funding from him. All of it. Let's see how long your music label runs." Silence. Andre looked away first. "Yeah," Renee said softly. "That's what I thought." The conversation changed after that. Not louder. More focused. Like something had been acknowledged, and now it could finally be explored without pretending. Darius set his glass down. "So what, you want to cut him off?" "That's stupid." "I didn't say that," Renee replied. "Then what are you saying?" She stood, walking slowly to the window. The city stretched out beneath her, lights blinking like coded signals. "I'm saying," she began, "we've been conditioned to accept a position that benefits him more than us." Darius frowned. "How does this benefit him? He's the one giving." Renee turned slightly. "Power doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like generosity." Andre scoffed. "That's reaching." "Is it?" she shot back. "He decides when money moves. When opportunities come. Who gets access to what? You call that support. I call it gatekeeping with a smile." Darius leaned forward. "Man, he's helping us." "No," Renee said, sharper now. "He's managing us." That word hung in the air. Managing. Not loving. Not supporting. Controlling. Even if unintentionally. Days turned into weeks, and those conversations didn't stop. They evolved. Private dinners. Late-night calls. Quiet meetings that never made it onto calendars. Renee started digging, not emotionally but structurally. Corporate filings. Ownership distributions. Legal frameworks. And what she found changed everything. She called them both over the night it clicked. "This," she said, sliding a folder across the table, "is how Carter Tech is structured." Darius flipped through it, confusion turning into focus. "Okay, and, Renee continued, if Malik were gone, legally gone, his shares, his controlling interest, everything transfers to us as next of kin. No delays. No external claims strong enough to override it." Andre blinked. "Wait, you serious?" "Completely." Darius looked up slowly. "So you're saying," I'm saying, Renee interrupted, voice steady, that everything we feel like we don't own could be ours. The room went still. Not because they didn't understand, but because they did. No, Darius said after a long moment, pushing the folder away. Nah, we not doing that. Renee didn't react. Doing what? You know exactly what. Andre sat quietly, eyes moving between them. Renee folded her arms. I didn't say we do anything. I'm just presenting facts. Yeah, well, your facts sound a lot like a setup, Darius snapped. Why? She asked. Because it makes you uncomfortable? Because it's wrong. Renee stepped closer, her voice lowering. Is it wrong? Or is it just something you've never had the courage to consider? Darius stood up. Man, that's our brother. And this, she said, gesturing around, is our life. Andre finally spoke. What exactly are you suggesting? Renee looked at him, then at Darius. Her expression didn't change. I'm suggesting, she said carefully, that accidents happen every day. The silence that followed wasn't hesitation. It was transformation. A line had been introduced. Not crossed yet, but no longer invisible. Darius ran a hand over his face, pacing now. This is crazy. But he didn't leave. Andre leaned forward, elbows on his knees. If something like that happened, he swallowed, nobody would question it? Renee shook her head. Not if it's done right. Darius stopped pacing, looked at her, then at Andre. And in that moment, something fragile inside him, something tied to loyalty, to memory, to the version of them that used to be a family, cracked. Not shattered, just weakened enough to let something else in. Hypothetically, Darius said slowly, what would it even look like? Renee didn't smile, didn't hesitate. She had already thought about it. Something natural, she said. Something untraceable. Somewhere isolated. Andre leaned back, heart pounding now, not from fear but from possibility. Like where? Renee's eyes were steady. Somewhere no one asks questions. And just like that, what began as quiet dissatisfaction became something sharper, more dangerous, more deliberate. The seed had been planted. And now it was growing roots. The plan didn't begin as a plan. Not in the way people imagine, no dramatic declarations, no sudden point of no return. It built itself slowly, piece by piece, until it felt less like a choice and more like an inevitability. That's what made it so dangerous. By the time Darius realized what they were actually preparing to do, he was already part of it. Malik mentioned the trip casually. They were in his home office, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft natural light, the quiet hum of a space designed for clarity. Malik stood near his desk, scrolling through something on his tablet. I'm heading out next weekend, he said. Same retreat. Gulf side this time. Darius leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Fishing. Malik nodded. Clears my head. It always had. No noise. No expectations. Just water stretching endlessly in every direction. It was the one place Malik allowed himself to disconnect. To be just a man. Not a provider. Not a leader. Not responsible. Darius watched him for a moment, something heavy settling in his chest. You ever get tired of going alone? He asked. Malik glanced up, mildly surprised. You volunteering? Darius forced a small shrug. Might be time we actually kick it. No business. No all this. He gestured vaguely around the office. For a split second, Malik's expression softened in a way it hadn't in a long time. Yeah, he said. I'd like that. And just like that, trust opened the door. Preparation moved quietly after that. Renee handled logistics because that's what she did best. She didn't rush, didn't overcomplicate. Every detail had to make sense, had to blend seamlessly into Malik's existing routine. The boat was already chartered, same company Malik always used. No new names. No unusual requests. But small adjustments were made. A different crew rotation. A maintenance note filed days before departure. Minor electrical inconsistencies in the navigation system. Nothing alarming. Just enough to exist on record. Andre didn't ask many questions at first. He didn't need to. He understood the direction they were heading. even if he didn't say it out loud. What if something goes wrong? He asked one night, pacing in Renee's condo. Renee didn't look up from her laptop. It won't. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. Andre stopped pacing. This ain't like some business move, Renee. No, she said calmly. It's bigger than that. Darius stood near the window, silent. Watching. Listening. Trying not to think too far ahead. The night before the trip, Malik hosted a small dinner. Nothing extravagant, just the four of them. One last normal moment, though none of them acknowledged it as such. Malik seemed lighter, less guarded. He laughed more easily, told stories from earlier days, before Carter Tech, before everything became structured and strategic. Remember when we used to sneak into that old movie theater on Auburn? He said, grinning. Andre smirked. Man, you used to act like we was committing a federal crime. We were committing a crime, Malik shot back. Yeah, but you was the only one sweating about it. Renee smiled faintly, but didn't add anything. Darius chuckled, though it felt delayed, like his body was following a script his mind wasn't fully present for. Malik looked around the table, something reflective in his eyes. We don't do this enough, he said. Just us. No one disagreed. But no one committed to changing it either. Because somewhere beneath the surface, each of them knew. This wasn't something they were trying to preserve. It was something they were already letting go of. The morning came quiet. The marina smelled like salt and fuel, the air thick with early sunlight reflecting off the water. Boats rocked gently in their slips, ropes creaking in soft rhythm. Malik arrived first, dressed simply, dark shirt, fitted cap, sunglasses. Darius showed up minutes later. You ready? Malik asked. Darius nodded. Yeah. He avoided eye contact. Malik noticed. You good? He asked. Yeah, Darius said quickly. Just didn't sleep much. Malik clapped his shoulder. That ocean air gonna fix that. Simple. Trusting. Unaware. They set out just after sunrise. The city faded behind them, replaced by open water stretching endlessly in all directions. The boat cut cleanly through the waves, engine steady, the kind of calm that makes time feel slower. For a while, it was exactly what Malik needed. No phones. No meetings. Just space. He stood near the edge, casting his line, breathing in deeply. This right here, he said, this is peace. Darius stood a few feet behind him, hands gripping the railing. Watching. The moment felt surreal, like he was outside of himself, observing someone else's life. Someone else's choice. You ever think about what happens when you step away? Darius asked. Malik glanced back. From what? All of it. The company. The pressure. Malik shrugged slightly. Not really. Why would I? Darius hesitated. Because maybe it don't all have to be on you. Malik gave a small smile. It's not a burden if you chose it. That answer, so simple, so certain, did something to Darius. Not admiration. Not anymore. Something closer to frustration. Maybe even anger. Because to Malik, it was a choice. To them, it never felt like one. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher. The water grew deeper, darker. Far from shore now. Far from anything. Malik moved toward the control panel, checking the navigation system. That's weird, he muttered. What? Darius asked, stepping closer. Systems glitching. Probably nothing. He tapped the screen, adjusting settings. That was the moment. The opening. The exact scenario Renee had predicted. Darius' heart started pounding. This is it. Not later. Not eventually. Now. It happened fast. But not fast enough to feel like an accident. Darius stepped in, closer than necessary. Let me see, he said. Malik shifted slightly, turning his attention toward him. And in that split second, Darius pushed him. Hard. Malik stumbled, caught off guard more than anything. His hand reached out instinctively, grabbing at empty air, at the edge of the console. Darius. Then he was gone. Over the side. The impact with the water was violent, the sound swallowed almost instantly by the open sea. For a moment, nothing. Just the boat. The waves. The echo of what had just happened. Darius rushed to the edge, looking down. Malik surfaced briefly, gasping, disoriented. Their eyes met. And in that look, there was no immediate anger. No accusation. Just confusion. Betrayal still forming. Darius. The water pulled at him, dragging him slightly under again. Darius stood frozen. Every instinct screamed at him to reach down. To pull him back. To undo it. But then, Renee's voice echoed in his mind. Power doesn't ask twice. Darius stepped back. Just one step. But it was enough. Malik disappeared beneath the surface again. When he came back up, he was farther now. Weaker. The boat rocked gently. The distance between them grew. And Darius did nothing. The ride back felt longer. He sat at the controls, hands steady, face blank. He didn't rush. Didn't panic. By the time he reached the marina, the story had already formed in his mind. Equipment malfunction. Sudden fall. No time to react. Search efforts launched immediately. Tragic. Unavoidable. Authorities believed it. Why wouldn't they? There were records of the system issue. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Just open water and a missing man. They searched for days. Helicopters. Boats. Diving teams. Nothing. No body. No trace. The world mourned. News outlets flooded with tributes. Visionary. Self-made billionaire. A man who changed industries. Carter Tech's stock dipped sharply, uncertainty shaking investor confidence. But stabilized quickly once Renee stepped forward publicly. Calm. Composed. Capable. We will honor my brother's legacy by continuing the work he started, she said during a press conference. Her voice didn't break. Not once. At the memorial, the room was full. Business leaders. Politicians. Friends. Family. Darius stood beside Renee and Andre, dressed in black, eyes hidden behind dark lenses. People hugged them. Offered condolences. Spoke of Malik like he was already history. Andre played his role well, quiet, shaken, believable. Darius said little. Because every time someone called Malik gone, something inside him flinched. That night, after everything was over, the three of them sat together in silence. No cameras. No audience. Just truth sitting heavy in the room. It's done, Andre said finally. Renee nodded once. Yes. Darius stared ahead, jaw tight. He didn't suffer, he muttered. Renee didn't respond. Andre shifted slightly. We did what we had to. Darius didn't look at him. Because deep down, he wasn't sure that was true. Out in the ocean, miles away from where the boat had turned back, the water moved the way it always did. Unbothered. Indifferent. And somewhere beneath the surface, Malik Carter was still fighting to breathe. Refusing to disappear. Refusing to become a memory. Even as the world began to bury him. Darkness didn't come all at once. It came in waves, like the ocean itself had followed Malik inside his body, rising and falling, pulling him under, then forcing him back up just long enough to feel pain. Salt burned his throat. His chest felt like it had collapsed inward. Every breath was a fight he wasn't sure he was winning. He didn't remember falling. Didn't remember the push. Only the water. Cold. Heavy. Endless. And a single thought breaking through the chaos. Stay up. When the cargo vessel spotted him, he was barely visible. A deckhand named Luis almost missed it. Just a flicker between swells, something unnatural in the rhythm of the water. Capitan, he shouted, pointing. There, something's out there. The ship slowed, massive engines groaning as it cut power. Two crew members leaned over the side, scanning the surface. Man overboard? One of them muttered. Doesn't matter, get the rope. They moved fast, but the ocean didn't make it easy. By the time they reached him, Malik had gone under again. Seconds stretched. Then, there, Luis yelled. A hand broke the surface weakly, barely more than a reflex. They hauled him up like dead weight, his body limp, water pouring off him in streams. Is he breathing? Barely. Get him inside now. The ship didn't turn around. It couldn't. Schedules, routes, regulations. None of it allowed for detours like that. But they did the next best thing. Radioed ahead and pushed forward at maximum allowable speed. Malik spent the next 2 days drifting in and out of consciousness in a cramped medical bay, tended to by a medic who had seen worse. But not by much. Severe dehydration. Hypothermia. Blunt trauma along his ribs and shoulder. And something else. Confusion. When he finally woke properly, it wasn't dramatic. No sudden jolt. No gasping realization. Just a slow, painful awareness. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar, metal, slightly rusted along the edges. The air smelled sterile, but not quite clean. He blinked. Everything felt heavy. Easy, a voice said. A woman stepped into view, mid-40s, steady eyes, no-nonsense posture. The ship's medic. You've been through hell, she added. Malik tried to speak. Nothing came out but a dry rasp. She handed him a small cup of water. Slow. He drank, each swallow sharp but necessary. What happened? He managed. The medic studied him carefully. That's what we're hoping you can tell us. But he couldn't. Not yet. Because when Malik reached into his mind for answers, he found gaps. Large ones. His name sat just out of reach. Faces blurred together. Time didn't line up. I don't know, he said finally. And for the first time in his life, Malik Carter had no control over the truth. They called him John Doe at the clinic, a small coastal facility tucked away from anything resembling a major city. It wasn't meant for high-profile patients or complicated cases, just routine care for a quiet stretch of shoreline, which made it the perfect place for someone who technically didn't exist anymore. Days passed slowly. Malik healed, physically at least. The bruising faded from deep purples to sickly yellows. His strength returned in fragments, first sitting up, then standing, then walking short distances. But his mind, that was different. He remembered pieces. A woman's voice, soft, warm. A promise. 3 figures around a table. Laughter that felt distant now. And always water. You're improving, the doctor said during one of his check-ins. Memory takes time. Don't force it. Malik nodded, though frustration simmered beneath the surface. Not knowing who you are isn't just disorienting. It's destabilizing. Every thought feels temporary. Every instinct feels unverified. He didn't know what kind of man he had been. Didn't know what kind of life was waiting for him, if there even was one. But something inside him remained intact. Something steady. Disciplined. Even without context, Malik found himself observing everything. Patterns, routines, conversations. The way staff rotated shifts. The way patients moved through the halls. The inefficiencies. He couldn't help it. It was who he was. Even if he didn't remember why. The first real crack in the fog came from a television. It was mounted high in the corner of the clinic's common room, usually tuned to low-volume daytime programming. Malik had been walking laps, slow, measured steps, when a familiar face flashed across the screen. He stopped. Turned. The headline read, Carter Tech moves forward after tragic loss of CEO Malik Carter. The name hit him like impact. Malik Carter. The image, sharp, composed, unmistakably him, stood beside 2 others. A woman. 2 men. Something twisted in his chest. Turn that up, he said suddenly. A nurse glanced at him, surprised, but grabbed the remote. The volume rose. Presumed lost at sea during a private trip. Despite extensive search efforts, no body has been recovered. The words blurred. But the faces didn't. The woman speaking at a podium, poised, controlled. Renee. He didn't know her name yet. But he knew her. Not logically. Instinctively. We will honor my brother's legacy. Brother. The word locked into place. And then, like a door kicked open inside his mind, everything came rushing back. The office. The dinners. The conversations. The tension he had dismissed. The boat. Darius. The push. Malik staggered back slightly, gripping the edge of a chair as the full weight of memory slammed into him. His breathing quickened. Not from panic. From clarity. They tried to kill me, he said under his breath. No one around him understood. But he did. Now he understood everything. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat by the small window in his room, staring out at the dark ocean in the distance. The same ocean that should have taken him. The same ocean that didn't. His mind moved differently now, sharper, colder. Not emotional. Strategic. Because survival wasn't the end of this. It was the beginning of something else. He started asking questions the next day. Carefully. Not about himself. About the world. What's the date? How long was I out? Any major news lately? He listened more than he spoke. Watched reactions. Pieced together timelines. 6 months. He had been gone for 6 months. Long enough to be buried. Long enough for everything to change. Getting discharged wasn't difficult. No identity meant no paperwork complications. Just signatures under a placeholder name and quiet release. The clinic assumed he'd figure out his life eventually. They had no idea he already had one. And that it had been stolen. He didn't go back immediately. That would have been a mistake. Malik knew that much instinctively. Instead, he disappeared properly. New clothes. Cash transactions. No digital footprint. He moved carefully, rebuilding from the outside in. Step 1, information. Public records. News archives. Financial reports. Carter Tech had stabilized. Renee at the helm. Darius and Andre integrated into leadership positions. Everything exactly where it shouldn't be. Step 2, identity. He couldn't be Malik Carter, not yet. So he became someone else. Temporary name. Temporary history. Just enough to move without being seen. Step 3, strategy. This wasn't about walking back in and demanding answers. That man, the one who trusted without question, was gone. Malik stood in front of a mirror one night in a cheap apartment miles away from his old life. He studied his reflection. Same face. Same eyes. But something had changed. Not broken. Refined. You don't come back loud, he said quietly to himself. You come back right. Revenge would have been easy. Emotional. Immediate. And ultimately weak. Malik wanted something else. Something permanent. They didn't just try to take his life. They took his name. His company. His legacy. And they wore it like it belonged to them. So he made a decision. Not driven by anger. But by precision. I'm not coming back to fight them, he said softly. I'm coming back to remove them. And somewhere in Atlanta, in glass offices and polished boardrooms, his siblings were building their future on the assumption that the past was gone. That Malik Carter was a memory. A closed chapter. A man lost to the ocean. They were wrong. Because the man they betrayed didn't drown. He adapted. He learned. He evolved. And now, he was coming back as something far more dangerous than the brother they thought they knew. A man with nothing left to lose. And everything to take back. Power is easiest to hold in the beginning. Before the cracks show. Before the weight of it settles into your decisions, your sleep, your silence. For a while, Renee Carter made it look effortless. The Carter Tech headquarters stood like a monument to control, glass, steel, and precision rising over Atlanta's skyline. Inside, everything still moved the way Malik had designed it to, efficient, calculated, clean. On the surface, nothing had changed. But beneath that surface, everything had. Quarterly projections are stable, one of the analysts said, clicking through a presentation. We've absorbed the initial dip from the transition. The transition. That's what they called Malik's death now. A transition. Renee sat at the head of the table, posture perfect, expression unreadable. She wore control like a second skin, sharp blazer, measured tone, eyes that missed nothing. Define stable, she said. The analyst hesitated. We're maintaining current contracts. No major losses. Renee leaned back slightly. Maintaining isn't growth. No, ma'am. Then don't present it like a win. Silence followed. No one challenged her. No one ever did. Because competence backed her authority. But something else did too. Something less visible. Fear. Darius didn't like being in the building anymore. At first, he told himself it was just the pressure. New responsibilities, new expectations. He wasn't used to operating at this level, making decisions that moved markets instead of inventory. But that wasn't it. It was the feeling, like the building remembered something he was trying to forget. "You good?" Andre asked one afternoon, leaning against the doorframe of Darius' office. Darius didn't look up. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "I said I'm fine." Andre stepped inside anyway, closing the door behind him. "You've been on edge for weeks." Darius finally glanced at him. "And you haven't?" Andre shrugged, but it wasn't convincing. "This is a lot, yeah. But we're handling it." Darius let out a dry laugh. "Handling it?" He gestured around the office. "You know what this is, right?" "All this," he said. "This ain't ours." Andre's jaw tightened. "It is now." "That don't make it right." Andre stepped closer. "Man, don't start that again." "I'm just saying." "You're thinking too much," Andre cut in. "That's the problem." Darius stared at him. Because thinking was exactly the problem. The first disruption came quietly. A contract renewal, one of Carter Tech's long-standing international deals, fell through without warning. "No explanation?" Renee asked, scanning the report. "None," the executive replied. "They just backed out. That's not how multi-year partnerships work." "I agree." Renee set the tablet down slowly. "Find out why." They tried, but the answers didn't come. And that was the first sign something was wrong. Because in Malik's system, there were always answers. Then came the second hit. An internal data leak. Not catastrophic, but precise. Targeted. Financial projections, internal communications. Just enough to raise eyebrows with regulators, not enough to trigger immediate shutdown. "Where did it come from?" Renee demanded. "Our cybersecurity team is still tracing it," someone replied. "How does something like this happen under your watch?" No one answered that, because the truth was worse than incompetence. It felt intentional. Andre started staying out later. Not partying, at least not like before. Avoiding. The penthouse felt too quiet now. Too still. Every reflective surface felt like it was watching him back. One night, he poured himself a drink and caught his own reflection in the glass. For a split second, it wasn't just his face he saw. It was the memory. Malik. In the water. Reaching. Andre shut his eyes tightly, shaking it off. "Man, get it together," he muttered. But the image didn't leave. It never really did. Renee, on the other hand, didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in patterns. And the pattern forming was deliberate. Someone was probing them, testing the structure, looking for weak points. "Run a full internal audit," she ordered. "Every department. Every system." "That could cause panic," one advisor warned. "Then control the narrative," she said coldly. "But do it." She wasn't afraid. She was alert. Because somewhere in the back of her mind, a thought had begun to form. Not fully, not consciously, but present. "This feels personal." The email arrived at 2:17 a.m. No subject line. No sender identification. Just an attachment. Renee stared at the screen for a long moment before opening it. Inside was a single file. She clicked it, and her stomach dropped. It was a detailed breakdown of financial manipulations, transactions she had personally authorized in the months following Malik's death. Strategic reallocations. Quiet diversions. Nothing sloppy. Nothing obvious. But definitely not clean. And someone had it all. Every number. Every timestamp. Every decision. At the bottom of the document, one line. "You missed a few things." Renee didn't panic. But for the first time, she felt something close to it. By morning, the damage had spread. Anonymous tips triggered a regulatory inquiry. 2 board members resigned pending further review. Media outlets started circling, not aggressively but curiously. "What's going on?" Darius demanded, storming into Renee's office. She handed him the file. He skimmed it, his face tightening with each line. "Who has this?" he asked. "That's the problem," she replied. "I don't know." Andre walked in moments later. "Y'all seen the news?" Renee didn't look at him. "Yes." "This is bad," he said. "No," she corrected. "This is controlled." Darius frowned. Control. Yes, she said, finally meeting his eyes. If this were exposure, we'd already be finished. This is pressure. Andre shook his head. Pressure for what? Renee didn't answer immediately. Because now, the thought was louder, clearer, more dangerous. This isn't random. Security footage surfaced 2 days later. Internal. Restricted access areas. Time-stamped late at night. A figure moving through the building with familiarity. Not rushing, not hiding, just existing where they shouldn't be. Face partially obscured by a cap. But the posture. The calm. The way he moved through space like it belonged to him. Darius felt his chest tighten as he watched. Pause it, he said. The frame froze. He stepped closer to the screen. No, he muttered. Andre frowned. What? Darius shook his head, backing away. Nah, that's not. What? Andre pressed. Darius didn't answer. Because saying it out loud would make it real. Renee watched the footage again. Slower this time. Analyzing. Breaking it down piece by piece. Not emotionally. Logically. But logic was starting to fail her. Because there was only one conclusion that fit all variables. And it wasn't possible. Enhance the image, she said. The technician adjusted the frame slightly, sharpening angles, clarifying shadows. Not perfect, but enough. Enough to see the line of a jaw. The shape of a face. Familiar. Impossible. Andre stepped back first. Yo, he whispered. Darius didn't move. Renee didn't blink. No, she said quietly. Not denial. Rejection. Because if it was true, then everything they believed, everything they built, everything they justified, collapsed instantly. But truth doesn't care about belief. The shareholder meeting had been scheduled for weeks. A routine appearance meant to stabilize confidence, reinforce leadership, and quiet the growing noise around the company. Renee stood backstage, adjusting her blazer, expression locked in place. You ready? Someone asked. Yes. She always was. Darius stood nearby, unusually silent. Andre checked his phone repeatedly, restless. None of them mentioned the footage. None of them said what they were all thinking. Because if they didn't say it, maybe it wasn't real. The room was full. Investors. Media. Cameras waiting. Renee stepped onto the stage, composed as ever. Thank you all for being here. The doors opened. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to interrupt the moment. Heads turned. Conversations paused. And then, silence. Malik Carter walked in like he had never left. No rush. No hesitation. Just presence. Darius felt the blood drain from his face. Andre's phone slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a dull crack. Renee. Renee didn't move at all. But her eyes, for the first time, betrayed her. Malik stepped forward slowly, his gaze moving across the room before settling on them. Not angry. Not emotional. Certain. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said. His voice carried effortlessly through the stunned silence. And in that moment, every lie collapsed. Every justification evaporated. Every layer of control they had built, shattered under the weight of one undeniable truth. They hadn't buried Malik Carter. They had created something far more dangerous. And now, it was standing right in front of them. Silence has weight. In the Carter Tech auditorium, it pressed down on everyone at once. Investors, executives, assistants frozen mid-breath. An entire room caught between disbelief and recognition. Malik didn't rush to fill it. He let it sit. Let it stretch. Let every second carve deeper into the reality of what his presence meant. Alive. Not missing. Not gone. Alive. And standing in a room that no longer belonged to the people who tried to erase him. Renee recovered first. Of course she did. She stepped forward, composure snapping back into place like armor. This meeting is adjourned, she said, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. We'll reconvene after. Stay, Malik said. One word. Calm. But absolute. The room hesitated. Then no one moved. Renee's jaw tightened slightly. This isn't the time or place for. It's exactly the time, Malik replied, his tone unchanged. And you made it the place. That landed. Not loudly, but precisely. Darius couldn't stop staring. You, he said, barely audible. That's not possible? Malik finished. Their eyes met. And whatever Darius had been telling himself for the past 6 months, whatever version of reality he had constructed to survive what he'd done, collapsed completely. I remember everything, Malik added. Darius staggered back a step, like the words physically hit him. Andre didn't speak at all. He didn't need to. The guilt was written across his face in ways no lawyer could erase. Renee exhaled slowly, recalibrating. Everyone out, she said again, more controlled this time. Malik shook his head slightly. No, they stay. He turned, addressing the room now. You all deserve transparency, he said. Especially considering how much of your money, your trust, and your future is tied to this company. The investors shifted, uneasy. This wasn't corporate damage control anymore. This was something else. Malik reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a thin folder. Simple, unremarkable, but the way he held it made it feel heavier than anything in the room. For the past 6 months, he said, I've been observing. A few quiet murmurs. Renee didn't interrupt. She couldn't. Not yet. I've reviewed internal transactions, contract deviations, unauthorized restructures, he continued. And I documented all of it. He placed the folder on the podium. And I didn't come alone. That was the cue. 2 men and a woman stepped into the room from a side entrance. Federal agents, unmistakable in presence if not in uniform. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Darius' voice cracked. Malik, man, listen. No, Malik said, turning to him. Not raising his voice. Not needing to. You had 6 months to think about what you wanted to say to me. Darius froze. Because there was nothing left to say. Andre finally found his voice. It wasn't supposed to. Malik looked at him. And Andre stopped. Because whatever explanation he had been about to offer died under the weight of that gaze. Renee stepped forward, refusing to crumble. You're making a mistake, she said, low enough that only Malik could hear clearly. Whatever you think you have, this doesn't end clean for you either. Malik met her halfway. Close enough now that the rest of the room faded. You're right, he said quietly. It doesn't end clean. A pause. Then, it ends correct. The agents moved in. Not aggressively, but decisively. Renee Carter, Darius Carter, Andre Carter. You are being detained pending investigation into financial crimes, fraud, and... The final charge hung heavier than the rest. Attempted homicide. Gasps rippled through the room. No more control. No more narrative management. Just truth, raw and exposed. Darius didn't resist. He couldn't. His shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him completely. I didn't think you'd, he started, then stopped, shaking his head. I didn't think you'd survive. Malik studied him for a long moment. Yeah, he said quietly. That was the problem. Andre broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just folded inward, like something inside him finally gave out. I see him every night, he muttered. In the water. I see it. Malik didn't respond. Because that wasn't for him to fix. Not anymore. Renee, even as they placed her in cuffs, held on to something resembling control. But her eyes, they told the truth she wouldn't say. She had calculated everything. Except this. Except him. As they were let out, the room parted like a tide pulling back. No one spoke. No one interfered. Because there was nothing to defend. The doors closed behind them. And just like that, they were gone. The silence returned. But it felt different now. Lighter. Clearer. Malik turned back to the room. Same people. Same company. But a completely different reality. I know this isn't what you expected today, he said. A few uneasy chuckles. Mostly stillness. But Carter Tech was built on precision, accountability, and trust, he continued. That doesn't change because leadership fails to uphold it. He rested his hands lightly on the podium. I'm still here. And if you're willing to move forward, I am too. It wasn't a speech. It was a line drawn, Rebuilding didn't happen overnight. It couldn't. Trust, once fractured at that level, takes time to restore. But Malik approached it the same way he approached everything. Deliberately. Strategically. Without illusion. He cleaned house where necessary. Strengthened systems that had been exploited. Re-established transparency at every level of the company. No shortcuts. No assumptions. Weeks later, the mansion in Buckhead felt different. Quieter. Not empty, but no longer carrying the same weight. Malik walked through it slowly one evening, hands in his pockets, taking in the stillness. The memories were still there, but they didn't control the space anymore. He stopped in front of the same photograph. All four of them. Younger. Closer. Whole. For a long moment, he just looked at it. Not with anger. Not even with sadness. Just clarity. "You should have just talked to me," he said softly. The words weren't bitter. They were final. He adjusted the frame slightly, then stepped back. This time, it didn't feel like holding on to something. It felt like letting it be what it was. At his mother's gravesite, the air was still. No cameras. No press. Just Malik standing alone. "I kept my promise," he said. The wind moved gently through the trees. "But I understand it better now." A pause. "I can't save people from themselves." He exhaled slowly, the weight of everything settling, not crushing, just present. Real. Earned. As he turned to leave, there was no hesitation in his step. No looking back. Not because the past didn't matter, but because it no longer defined his direction. Malik Carter had lost his family, but he hadn't lost himself. And in the end, that was the one thing they could never take from him. Finally, we have come to the end of this story. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, do well to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.